And with that said, welcome to episode 3 of the Adaptable Business. And I've got a couple questions for everyone here. I got a little poll that I'm going to launch. It kind of gives us an idea of everybody's background. So those questions should have popped up in front of you. And if you can take a few seconds to answer those. Number one is, have you had to switch from a brick and mortar to an online practice or business, in the last couple weeks? And did you have any form of online services before the crisis? And let's say the crisis were to end tomorrow, would you want to continue offering some type of online service? Or said another way, do you wish for your short-term online services to be just that? Okay, so it looks like the majority of people switch from a brick and mortar, almost 80%, 75 to 80%. And about 1/3 of everyone had some type of online service, a little bit more than 1/3. And then almost all of you, 96% of you, say when this thing ends, you still want to offer some type of online service. So that's, 3 times the amount of people who actually had online services, or more than double. So it looks like people are if they didn't have an online service, they're saying, oh, that's just something that could be valuable and something that could, survive some other type of emergency in the future. So I think that's pretty valuable info for us and goes right along with what hopefully we're going to talk about. So Yves, can you just jump in with a little bit about your background? Because you've been working with physical therapists in their own business long before this has happened. So this has kind of been your thing. You have your own practice. Can you go into a little bit about your background and what things are looking like for you now with your own business and how you've been transitioning things?
Yeah, sure, man. I appreciate it. I'll try to make somewhat of a long story short. I graduated PT school in 2006. Believe it or not, I wanted to be a pediatric physical therapist when I first started, and then made a transition to outpatient. Just did I basically worked for the school system in the summers. I did some outpatient stuff, and then I transitioned to just insurance-based practice, orthopedic, and then 4 years into that, decided that I kind of went backwards. Kind of Quinn, your story, strength conditioning, then PT. I kind of did PT and then got into the strength conditioning world. So I started getting in the strength conditioning world and started looking around. I was like, I got to do something better than this. Transitioned to cash-based, kind of started completely over. Did that for 4 years, dabbled a little bit in the startup world during that time, and then had some success here locally, just in this performance-based kind of cash world. And then just was able to kind of expand with multiple clinics and kind of multiple practitioners in about a 4-year period. And then I partnered with Danny Matei, and now we're doing some business coaching, just trying to help as many physical therapists who are kind of interested in this kind of gym performance-based cash world, just kind of be successful, grow, scale, start. So that's kind of summation.
And you still have a brick and mortar?
Yes. Yep. So right now, I'm in my clinic now. We've got 2 PTs, 1 PTA in 1 location. We have our standalone space. We were in a CrossFit gym. Now we have our own space with a little mini CrossFit gym, version of a CrossFit gym, just because that's what people understand. Basically some rogue equipment, weights, kettlebells. And then we also have a second office, and she's mobile. She's kind of a partner of ours. She goes to different CrossFit gyms and different personal training gyms and does treatment out of there.
So now with that, how have things changed in the last couple of weeks or few weeks?
Yeah, dramatically, right? So we saw it coming, and we actually closed somewhat preemptively because we were having 2 or 3 visits kind of here and there, and I knew it was going to happen, and we had to make this transition. I found out just very, very fast. So we shut down not last week, but the week before, and started doing telehealth and maybe some emergent visits, people who really need to come in, maybe they're post-op. We have one guy who's in a significant amount of back pain. So as we did that, we kind of realized, and we have some sort of digital presence, but we didn't have as necessarily any kind of big online product or online business that we could rely on. So we have started building that out. B, we already do we have one of our coaches or PTs, he already does some online training. So we have some clients of his, about 10 to 15. So we're basically getting to all of our patients, trying to convert them to telehealth or some version of online programming. B, trying to build out more digital funnels to push people to online programming. And then C, really trying to figure out what kind of online product, and there's multiple versions of that, but something online that can help us sustain something like this in the future. Like, we've had to deal with hurricanes before, but that's like a week and then we're back. Like, this is obviously going to be a month, if not more, and so trying to figure that out and grow and scale that has been a challenge, as well as helping our other clients who work in our business to help them see the light, and so to speak.
And that's a big issue with this, or there's many, but it's the uncertainty. We don't know how long this is going to last. People are afraid to completely change their model because they say, well, what if this thing ends in 6 weeks? Then I just spent energy that I could have spent in just like reinforcing the model that I already had and just weathering the storm. But the other side of it is, well, what if you were to create just a whole nother avenue for yourself that you could take forward? And it sounds like maybe that's kind of what you're steering toward. You still want to do what you were doing before, but then have just other options. So for the many people that are probably here right now, and also that you work with Danny and with Physical Therapy Biz, who are in a very same boat, having to all of a sudden close their doors, wanting to keep their community together. What was your first step? What was kind of the next action item in that direction? It's like, okay, we need to get our patients kind of another option to continue care with us. What does that look like logistically?
So first step, you've got patients already scheduled. So the first thing you're going to do is try to transition them. And this is what you mean, current patients, how are we going to transition them to something online or something digital, right? That's kind of what you asked, right? So first thing to do is you're going to reach out to them, call them, and with help first, right? And so if you try to sell somebody right off the bat, it's not usually a good kind of gameplay, especially with something like this. So we're reaching out to those patients and saying, hey, you've got an appointment scheduled. We're transitioning all of our scheduled patients to telehealth visits. Would you like to keep the same time? The transition is really easy. We will send them a video that kind of explains how to do that. And we transition as many people as we can. Also just being very, very supportive. So they say they cancel kind of preemptively. They're like, I'm interested in that. We're just like, well, if there's anything that we can do to help, please let us know. And we're checking in with all these people, like every PT is checking in with their patients pretty much on a weekly basis at this point. Again, kind of help first model. And then if there's a way we can help them, hey, I need you to build me a workout that I can do because I'm stuck at home, or hey, I've got these issues. I don't want to lose sight of the progress I've made. Can you build me something out? Sure, we can help and figure something out for you.
Now, does that become its own product? As in, does the model change a bit, or have you guys changed your model from more traditional physical therapy? You come in, you pay for the visit, and then you leave, you come back, you pay for the visit, you leave, to some type of like package or coaching package where we do a telehealth visit, we write you a program, we kind of touch base, but there's a price point that's monthly or something like that. Have you guys looked into that type of model?
Yeah, so maybe it would be better to preemptively say what our model is currently. So right now, we charge $215 for an evaluation. Those are about 75 minutes. And then we offer people, this is in person, 6 or 10 visit packages. And those obviously vary on price. That's kind of the model we do. And then we do online monthly programming. That's about $195 a month. That's really the services that we typically offer. We also have we call a continuity program, where we touch base with people on a monthly basis at a discounted cost. And same thing, it's kind of like online programming, but in person. I'll see them monthly, I talk to them, and then give them their program kind of in person and talk about training load and all that kind of stuff. That's what we do right now.
Has the coaching, so that monthly package, that programming, are those healthy athletes? Are those now people who would have been, in-person physical therapy clients now maybe transition to that? Or are you
Yeah.
keeping that kind of separate? Okay.
It's kind of like a continuum is what I thought of it, right? So like we wanted to continue to help people even though they weren't necessarily in pain and help them reach whatever like athletic or physical goals, or maybe their goal is literally just to maybe hopefully reduce the risk of injury, right? Or just continue to, hit PRs and squats. We kind of want to help them do that. Either sometimes it's with a coach or sometimes we kind of happen to be that coach and that kind of PT role as well. Like if I can have an athlete their entire life and I can provide value and they see value in me, I kind of keep that way. So we were kind of already in that model, looking at it that way.
One of the big things that we had with episode 2 with Rory, a lot of the questions were based around helping or their clients being out of state and what telehealth means in that regard, and this whole gray area of coaching and wellness versus is this physical therapy. Do you guys have anybody that you work with that's out of state, or do you just chop all that away and say we work with people online, in person, you guys are within our state borders and we don't have to worry about that?
So, right, we basically keep everything. We may have 1 or 2 clients online who are out of state, but most people are in state, right? And so when you talk about kind of what's happening now, we're trying to figure out how we can expand that, exactly what you're saying. So we have a product that works really, really well in person, right? Like they come in, they're in pain, they see us, and then we can help them continue to reach whatever performance goals they had. And now we're trying to take the same exact thing, but how can we now do this on an online digital format? So if I can't see people in person, I can put them in the same, I like to think of things as funnels. How can I put them in that same funnel and continue to provide value and trade money for value, basically?
With that, so that, and I think that's where a lot of people are where their minds are going too. You and I have talked. I mean, you've been in the Clinical Athlete Forum and you've been helping a lot of our members for years now. And there's a ton of threads in there about this very thing. And the last episode, there were a lot of questions and I don't think there are that many answers, but I also know that you have consulted with attorneys on this matter and you've done a lot of digging. When it comes to the legality of working with somebody out of state, and let's say they're injured, is calling it coaching and wellness enough, or are we ultimately held to our highest license? How does that dynamic work? And is that something that you guys are thinking about managing as you try to push into that space?
Yeah, I mean, managing risk is obviously a big piece of that, right? And so from everything that I've been told, if it's the thing that matters most for everybody is that you do right by that person and that you give them a good service and that they like you and that like they're not going to sue you if they dislike. That's why physical therapists don't get sued a good bit.
Do no harm, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like have a good relationship with them and do the right freaking thing. That's the bottom line. But the second layer is to be very, very transparent and document like crazy. So the big thing that a lawyer told me was that they needed to kind of verbally, in person say like, hey, I'm not treating physical therapy. This is more of a wellness coaching thing. Are you okay with that? Yes. Mitigate risk level 2, document it like crazy. Mitigate risk number 3, make sure that when they book things online, that it's not going to be, it doesn't say physical therapy, it says coaching. The last kind of layer of that is the best way they can explain to me, because again, it is gray. And every time you talk about things legally, there has to be a precedent for it. There's not a lot of precedents for this. We can't go back to case law and say, hey, this is the case, and this is how this judge guided this decision, so this is how to base your decision. So it's the bottom line. So what you need to look at is if a group of your peers, so if a group of physical therapists were looking at what you're doing, and if they considered it physical therapy, skilled physical therapy, then it probably is. If they didn't, then you're more in the wellness coaching realm, right? Because that's who's going to be making that decision. And so I try to base as many decisions as I can off of those layers.
And the important thing that I'm getting from you is you've got these layers in place, but it's still risk appraisal. There can still be something that seeps through the layers ultimately. So you have to just kind of make those decisions, but you're you're securing things as best you can. Now, when you said that the people agree to the situation, you said in person, but if we're talking about people online, do you mean literally in person, or maybe like on
Yeah, like
some
in
type
person.
of camera?
We're in person right now, right? Just
Okay, okay.
verbal confirmation. Yeah, sorry.
Got it. Press record and say, I
Yeah.
gotcha. You said,
Yeah, and it's more just documented. It would say like, hey,
yeah.
I talked to this person, I documented it. I mean, I guess they could lie, if they went, to a judge, but that's the bottom line. It's just being very clear.
Okay. No, that's really, really helpful. So is that where when you and Danny are working with a lot of physical therapy entrepreneurs and business owners, and is this kind of the route that you're pushing with them as well, helping them to kind of build some other options that can complement their brick and mortar?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'll be transparent. It's very difficult for us because we have so many things kind of going on, like our specific practice at Made to Move, also with multiple practitioners. Most of the people we work with are usually single practitioner, right? And so what I'm telling a lot of these single practitioners to work on is, just like I said first, to kind of reach out to the old patients. They have personal relationships with all of them, right? We have like admin staff that handle some of that. So personal relationships. So you need to reach out to all those old patients. Just like I said, check in, try to provide some value, and try to get them in a telehealth visit or in some sort of online coaching. But now we're talking about, and kind of the purpose of what we're going to talk about is, how do I create something that's going to actually like last forever? Some sort of online program, online product, online coaching, whatever, that not only will help my patients right now and help me recoup some of the revenue that's going to be lost that all of us are feeling, but will continue to provide revenue for me for years and years and years and years to come, right? And so stuff they should have been working on but never did, right? Like we've been telling them, but now it's like, oh man, now I've got all this time. Now I can start doing this stuff.
I got all this time and no people and no money. I better do something.
Right.
Yeah. What do those strategies look like? Do they look a lot like what you talked about earlier in regards to making monthly coaching, so that these people are not leaving you when they're quote unquote better or discharged? This is kind of a lifelong endeavor that you have with this person, where you can take them through the continuum of rehab to training, and that side of the continuum just doesn't end.
Yeah. It's always hard for me to get in the framework, because everybody we work with, and like you guys too, you guys understand that framework. It's that framework of like coaching and PT are kind of the same thing, right? So they're already kind of there. So what we're focusing on more is I would say the marketing side of things, and for them to really understand what this funnel looks like. So in my brick and mortar practice, we do a lot of workshops, we do a lot of meetings, we go to gyms, we meet people, they come in for evals, they do the packages, we hopefully keep them forever from a coaching standpoint. And it doesn't really change, it just changes in the fact that it's now online. So we're trying to get them to think about the same principles we've been telling them, but put it into more of an online format. So for an example, push out content on Instagram. Let's just use something really, really that everybody can understand, just mobility-based stuff, right? So like warm-ups, prep work, right? Put a lot of that stuff out, prehab, whatever you want to say. Put that content out, right? And then with that content, try to capture their email address. We'll just use that, capture their email address, create an email list. After you get that email list, try to email them frequently and nurture them, tell them, that they should be doing these programs often. And then after that, launch some sort of digital product. And that's something you can kind of do forever at kind of a base level. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. What I really am emphasizing with a lot of our students, we'll just call them, right, is a lot of them are very niche specific. So like a gymnast, Olympic lifting niche, CrossFit niche, soccer niche. That makes things almost even easier too, because they can really hone in just on their niche, right? And so, having a lot of them, going on a tangent here a little bit, having a lot of them just push people into like their own Facebook group, right? And then in that Facebook group, provide value. And then at some point, yes, you can sell one-off products, like similar to what kind of Zach Long does. You can do more online coaching stuff that y'all focus on a lot more, or it could be more of like group programming, like something like Softly does, or Barbell WOD, right? Like it doesn't really matter what it is. I try to get them to keep it very similar to what they're already doing, what they're already good at, but just think of it as the same thing. It's just in a digital format.
Well, and if so, what I'm taking is the funnel, like you just said, the steps don't necessarily change, but now it's how do I adapt to the terrain? Because as physical therapists, we're getting our patients from someone, somewhere. So let's say we're getting them from a gym, or for a lot of people here, we're getting them from physicians. You know, maybe most of their patients are coming from medical doctors. Well, right now the difficulty is all outpatient, non-essential things are kind of being pushed by the wayside. So that's hard. And so now you may need to push into different spaces, but you know, the gyms are not closed. They didn't shut their doors for forever. They want to stay open too. And they want to provide value to their members. And so some gyms are loaning out equipment, but but the point is they're still open. So if you're saying, you guys used to go to gyms and do workshops and then maybe in services for the coaching staff, could you not still do something online? So like, for example, on Zoom, you have their coaching staff in front of you and you're giving them some type of like rehab, whatever, or movement, you know, something. Because a lot of the gyms are still to keep in touch with their clients and their members online themselves. So it still works the same way, but you maybe just have to be a little bit more creative and innovative with how you get the message across. Is that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, totally. Right. So like, let's use that example, right? So we're having a lot of people reach out to these gyms and can you provide content? Right now, they're probably struggling to provide online workouts. Like how many do they need to provide all day, right? So can you provide very similar to a workshop you do, but do it online, send it to that coach, right? And then that coach can kind of send it out and be like, hey, if you're interested in working with, you know, Made to Move More, here's a link. And you create a, you know, I'm getting kind of in the weeds, but a specific landing page, right? And then the landing page, they could opt in and click a button, say, I got your email address and I'll send you something for free. Like now you have something that you could do online anywhere, anytime, right? You could send that workshop to a gym in California, to anywhere, right? An online workshop, and then they could send it and people could put in their email address. You collect email addresses, and now you're still doing the exact same thing that you were doing before. You're just providing it on a different terrain. By the way, I really like that. Doing it on it's the same thing, just a different terrain.
What are your thoughts on having multiple digital options? Are you guys thinking about, as you move into the space, having kind of a quote unquote buffet of maybe 2 or 3 things where you've got maybe a low ticket, one-time purchase type of item, like a program or something like that, a higher end coaching plus a lot of attention and a lot of consult, and then something in the middle?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of it as this is kind of like a value ladder, right? So the first thing that they could get is free. The middle tier product mixed up in the value is something they could get for, let's call it $30 to $50, right? Like maybe it's just a little mini course. And then eventually what I want, I mean, what we want to do at Made to Move is we love one-on-one stuff. We want to see people, we want to be able to help them directly. And that's our bread and butter. So I'm going to try to push people up that value ladder as quickly as I can, you know, and still provide value. Again, something that would be automated eventually, not necessarily automated, but that funnel would kind of always be there.
Free can be a little scary right now to people. How do you reconcile that? Like, what's a situation like this in which people are scrambling for revenue, and then sometimes it's like, well, you might, to get in the door and to get an audience, free something might have to be a thing. How do you reframe that into it being, no, this is like an investment that hopefully we can see some return? Is that something that you're seeing, like a barrier that you're having to get through with some of the clinicians that you're working with right now in this time?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, we're taking a 2-pronged approach. Like first prong, and this is how you can really recoup a lot of revenue, is just like I said, your current patient, your current list. Can you sell something specifically to them? Because they're going to kind of ascend the value ladder, so to speak, very quickly. But right now, lead generation is this is the time to build trust in people. The people that you reach out to now and you bring them in and you give them something for free or very low ticket, like you've just built a lot of trust with that person. So I am framing it just as you said, something very, very long-term. Like, the online stuff, I think all of you guys know this. It takes a long time to build a community. It takes a long time to have a online presence that lasts, and it needs continued nurturing, continued work, right? And I think that's where a lot of people sometimes are getting a little misled. It's like, oh, in 4 weeks, I can launch this course, I'm gonna make a bunch of money, and then it's over. It's like, no, like you need to build something that you can repeat for years to come. You have to continuously nurture that audience. Like if a gym or a doctor never hears from me again and they're my referral source, at some point they're probably going to stop referring to me. So I need to nurture that relationship. The same thing kind of goes online. This is now going to be something you're going to have to continuously put effort in. So I want it to be something that's actually sustainable too, right? Not like, this absolute mind craziness of just 100 different things, 100 pieces of content, sell this thing and then it's done. It's like, well, what can I create that's actually sustainable long-term?
Something else you said earlier on that I think is a nugget that should be really, really highlighted is you mentioned something like a Facebook group. Down the line, you get these leads. So you do something, you get in front of an audience, you build some type of community, you build some type of lead generation, and then you have some type of community for them, because when you build a list of people, you see them and you're like, oh, cool. These people are kind of, part of us now, and they're interested in what we have to say and what we're doing, but they don't know about each other necessarily. And so to them, they're very individual. And that's why I think it's easy a lot of times for people to just kind of jump ship, because it's hard to know there's so much out there. But if you build a community within that, and it could be something as simple as a Facebook group, potentially, with what it sounds like you're saying, I think that really, really builds a lot of brand loyalty and community that keeps the motivation and keeps the train going. And they can then build momentum for you and for the community. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what people will get stuck in the weeds of trying to make a product like amazing and, evidence-based. And all that stuff's very, very important, but what's going to matter more is the kind of marketing and the kind of community side, all those kind of intangibles, right? Like people are typically buying from you because they like you and they want to be part of your community. So we can start thinking about, I think of my brick and mortar practice more as a community than as a business, right? We have a community of people, we have cold brew coffee on tap. We have people just come in and do that. It's building community. And can you do the same thing kind of online as well? And a Facebook group, like you guys kind of do a forum, a place where people can kind of interact and get to know each other is a place that they probably won't leave for a very long time. And that's somebody who knows, likes, and trusts you and is willing to buy from you. That's the value, right? It's like the value isn't necessarily how awesome the product is. The product has to be good, but the value needs to be focused kind of more on these other things that people typically aren't looking at.
And just for everybody, feel free to start throwing in some questions to the Q&A with this stuff. Jeremy, I see your question. We'll get to that. It's kind of more of a logistical thing. Let's maybe pivot temporarily to kind of where the rubber meets the road. Were all of your clinicians doing some type of teletherapy even before this, or has that had to be a kind of a skill to learn on the fly? Like, what does a teletherapy session look like, and how is it different logistically than an in-person session from a flow standpoint, from a what can I do and what can I actually offer on an online platform?
Yeah, it's been a challenge for some people. Some who we work with could be very manual heavy, and then making that transition from a manual heavy therapist to doing it otherwise. So what I've been telling, and it's something that you guys already talk about a bunch, is like, what are the two, in my opinion, humble opinion, what are the two best tools in a therapist tool belt? And like, one is just the education piece. Two is the empowerment piece of just like, we have people come in, they're in a lot of pain, and just kind of like on a telehealth visit, we're just like, hey, like, it's okay. You can do these things. Let's just modify it a little bit and let's keep going. Like that in and of itself has been so powerful. So we already do some of that stuff. And so we're kind of double down on that, right? We're double down on talking to them off the ledge, so to speak. A lot of people are stressed out. So we're doing more of like what we call the subjective piece of things and just kind of listening to them talk and really taking it all in, and then giving them some actionable steps of them, some things to do, create some locus of control. It's like, here's what you can go do today, go start doing it. And they already kind of feel better. And then, yeah, there's some exercise prescription. It's challenging. We're lucky we have a very big library of YouTube videos. We're already using some platforms like True Coach, which makes those things easier. But, emailing them with some YouTube links is a great time to batch some content. Make some YouTube videos of those exercises, put them up on your YouTube channel, email them, to your patients at the end of their telehealth visit, and make sure that they do them. It's something we're pushing people towards. Answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. And then we're getting some really good questions rolling in here. David asked a good one, and maybe this is something that you've had to deal with before this all happened too, is how do you approach gyms and gym owners about providing resources without stepping on toes and acknowledging that providing online coaching could be perceived as trying to steal clients?
So, I guess we'll have to go back to maybe first just the brick and mortar piece, right? How would we develop those relationships initially? And it comes back down to that community piece. I'll go there and kind of try to be part of their community as kind of a drop in, right? And so even now with an online community, I'll jump in some of these online workouts that some of the coaches are doing, and I'll comment, I'll engage, and I'll kind of build a little bit of bridge first before I start hard selling. Hey, send me your patients. Hey, send me, I'm gonna do all the online programming for you. And you position it as a partnership or an alliance, as opposed to we're competing with each other, right? And so it's like, hey, you're working on these things, I can complement you by doing these things. And this is how we fit together. And it's just more relationship-based marketing as opposed to like referral-based marketing. I don't necessarily like that verbiage. Like, I'm creating relationships with people. Again, that community thing. I'm creating relationships with people. I'm genuinely interested in what they're doing. They're genuinely interested in what we're doing, and we're creating these partnerships to combat musculoskeletal disease, whatever you want, however you want to put it, injuries, whatever, together.
Well, with you having like a coaching service as well, is there ever an issue underlying with that? Because I know what David's asking. Basically, like you have to kind of appraise the situation and say, this athlete already has a coach. Like I personally, when an athlete comes to me, that's one of the first things I ask them, like, who's your coach? Do you have a coach? Are you looking for a coach in a program and like that whole shebang? Or are you looking for me to be an adjunct to you guys? And I pivot based on what they're looking for. Like, I'm not trying to poach people, and I don't want to ruin those relationships because that coach is sending me somebody because they trust me. So in that situation where you also have coaching services, but you have rehab services too, do you try to toe that line and just take it as a case-by-case basis? Like, what does this athlete actually need from me? And I want to foster, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's we'll call that social agility, right? It's like going there, reading the situation, and creating a service and offering that is right for that person, as well as right for that gym, right? So just kind of having the ability to do that, of just being kind of socially agile and be able to figure out how to create an alliance with them, but not step on their toes. I think it's somewhat of a skill. It's like not something that I learned initially. It's something that I got better at as I did it more and more.
One thing I've found some success in this realm is trying to position myself as a bridge. Being a coach myself and being in healthcare, I think if you create that healthy relationship with the coaches and you get them to understand that, okay, like I have my clients, I have my CrossFit clients, I have my powerlifters or whatever it may be, but you're like a specialist for this particular thing, then I can create kind of a value leverage there with the coaches, where all of a sudden, if they run into something that's just not what they're used to or not something they want to deal with, like if you get individual with chronic injuries, a lot of coaches are like, this is just outside of like what my comfort zone is. Then I get that phone call. And you position yourself through the lectures and the relationship building process. But I'm also that bridge where I'll get some coaching clients or get some rehab clients just based off that relationship, because now all of a sudden I've taken that hat that coach doesn't want to wear off, and I'm wearing it. And they're like, it looks better on you. So they send the client my way. And then the big thing here is I send that client back. I send them back better. I send them back in a better position, and I continue that relationship with the coach and continue to build it. And then there are times where they're like, hey, I've got one of my top end weightlifters where they were like, I think I've taken them as far as I can. I don't know what to do anymore. I want to see what you can do. And that's what, then now I have a lifelong athlete because of a relationship that I built. So if you can be that bridge for people and provide that value for the coaches, I think it's not necessarily stepping on toes. I think it's just a really professional relationship that you can develop.
Yeah, providing value first, right? And then making them look good, right? I think y'all talked about it. I think it's for like the hierarchy of needs, like, just increasing their status, and making them look good. Like that's huge. It's like, with some CrossFitters, they already have a coach, they're already going to a gym, and we're just supplementing some of that. And they're just like, oh man, they finally hit an overhead squat, or they finally were able to do, whatever, handstand push-ups. Like, and it's like, thank you. And it's like, well, that's what we're here for. We're here to help, make your athletes look good, make your gym look good.
Well, and there's proximity bias too, right? So they have athletes that they say something to all the time, like, hey, maybe you should pay attention to your sleep. And then we come in and we do a lecture and we're like, okay, recoverability. Sleep is the number one priority. And they all start laughing and they turn around and look at their coach. That makes their coach feel so good. And if you can provide that for them, then that bridge is right there already. They're like, you come in and you just nail the same things that I'm saying, and the athletes finally pick up on it, and it makes everybody better. So it's that positive kind of reinforcement.
No, I agree. I used to get that all the time when I was inside the gym. Be like, I've been saying, the coach would be like, I've been saying that for years. And I was just like, yeah, it's just another perspective. I'm here to, again, make you look good. I'm going to say the same damn thing that you said. I'm just going to say it again, and we're going to get through to these people together, and yeah, those bridges are very difficult to destroy, by the way, once you build them.
We got some really good questions here from people. Dalton asks, hey guys, currently in the process of opening a cash-based clinic in Canada. Shout out Jared, Canadias.
He was actually at my last meet.
Oh, cool.
Dalton and Will have their own podcast, and they're awesome dudes. So
nice. And he says, been doing the PT blueprint. So Yves, thanks for the content. My question is, how do we take the in-person marketing we were doing / planning to do in the community to the online space? We have started to offer Facebook Live Q&A with some local gyms, Facebook groups. Any other thoughts? So we kind of touched on this earlier, but Facebook Live would be a good idea potentially, right?
Oh, absolutely. Right. Can you go Facebook Live with them together? I hate to keep going back to this, but it's like reaching out to those gyms and those people directly and trying to get them on a conversation and find out what they're looking for. What do they need? How can you help them? How can you make them look good, just like we've talked about, and providing that value? So yes, let's talk about action items, Facebook Live, Instagram Live, recording content and sending it to them, maybe creating PDFs of specific content they need and sending to the coaches. Again, whatever you were planning to do it on an online format, send it to them. I think that's going to be the best bet.
Jamie asks, have you adjusted price points these last few weeks, or are you planning to adjust price points for the next few weeks? Created free visits. So we mentioned free a little bit, but how extensive are you getting with free? And for teletherapy sessions that were previously in the brick and mortar. So I guess has price point shifted?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in any other time, I would not, an hour of my time is worth an hour of my time. However, we decided kind of as a team, just because of all the things going on, a lot of people in financial uncertainty, we decreased our prices. So we're at $150 for an hour, $75 for a half hour, right? Where typically would be, like I said, $205 to kind of $165, depending on the package rate. So we decided to decrease it more just because we wanted to help our local community, and to decrease the barrier of entry, we decided to do just free kind of telehealth check-ins, right? Because a lot of people, they call it inertia. They're like, I don't want to use this new platform. Like, I don't know what Zoom is. How do I log in? What happens? So I just want you to use it once. And if I can get you to come in to use it once, then I can get you to see the value. And now maybe we can do, again, online coaching or a telehealth visit kind of afterwards. I think free, we talk about the value ladder, free is the best way to get someone just to use something once. And then just like a discovery visit, or a consultation. And then I can show you the value. And now we can start working together long-term, because time is probably what a lot of us have right now. So I'd rather be using that time kind of effectively. And I think it's an effective way to do that.
A lot of these things seem counterintuitive, don't they? It's like free, reduced prices in a time where we're like, our bottom line is shrinking, but if you can weather the storm, and if like you can regroup and, galvanize the troops almost, and the troops are your community, like who's in your funnel. It's a way to solidify things. Like nobody's, unless you invested in Zoom stock the last month, nobody's going to get rich during this time. You're going to hopefully solidify your avenues and then go forward. And I think that's what you're getting at. So, that makes a lot of sense. And reducing prices can, that doesn't have to be a permanent thing. I wouldn't assume, right? That's, you're adapting to the current landscape.
Yeah. I mean, we've done a lot of things, right? So like during this pandemic, basically our prices are reduced. The other thing that we're doing, and we haven't done this yet, it came actually from another one of our mastermind members, is he's selling these kind of bigger packages. So we sell like 10 visit packages and giving people free telemedicine during, as long as we're that stay at home, shelter in place stuff. You get free telemedicine if you buy this kind of 10 visit package, right? So that's a great way to recoup some revenue and provide, again, this big bridge and this big trust with a lot of people. So I don't want to talk about too much because we haven't actually done that yet. We got something this week we're kind of doing next week, but I just, getting a little more creative is not a bad idea either.
And real quick, going back to Dalton's question about different ways to get in front of people, I didn't want to make it seem like we dismissed it, but I think, Dalton, if you go back, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but if you go back, probably the first 15 minutes of what we talked about is how to get in people and create that kind of community. So it was a good question. Just go back and listen to the recording too, because there were other things that we mentioned. We've got some questions about platforms, and Greg he asks, this may be a bit of a noob question. I don't think it is, but why are people pushing the use of coaching apps such as TrueCoach? Every coach I've ever had just shared a Google Excel sheet and communicated via email. And follow up to kind of complement that, Brandon asks, what do you feel is the best, easiest format to create an online program and get the word out if you have nothing at the moment? I'm pretty sure everybody on this panel uses TrueCoach. But Yves, I'm going to let you touch on that. Like, why do you pick something like TrueCoach as opposed to Google Sheets, Excel sheet, email?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people, do the thing that you're going to actually commit to and be able to do on a regular basis consistently. So if that's email and Google Sheets, not a problem, right? But using TrueCoach, having access to the video library, messaging with the app, being able to interact with them on a regular basis, them again having to go in and put their, seeing if they actually completed their workouts or not, have been huge for me as far as keeping people long-term, right? So I don't want to see somebody just for a month for online coaching. Most of that work is that first month, right? So I want to keep them for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even a year, right? As long as, again, we can provide value to each other. So TrueCoach has really helped us increase the lifetime value of each one of our clients. And that goes a long way, because getting new people all the time is hard, man, but keeping people is a lot easier. And so we like providing value to keep them long-term.
And
I've also found,
oh, go ahead, John.
Sorry, I've also found just an efficiency standpoint. I started off with Google Sheets and email and Messenger and Instagram Messenger. Basically, any way you communicate with me was an option. And once you get to a certain point, man, it gets overwhelming. You're doing video feedback. It takes you 20, 30 minutes a person, and trying to do updates. And with something like TrueCoach, everything's in one place, which make things a lot more efficient. So it's more for me an efficiency thing. I'm not necessarily pushing it. If you have, 10, 15 people, Google Sheets and email is probably going to work pretty well. But once you start getting in the higher numbers or trying to do larger, chunks of service for people, then the apps are definitely very helpful from just a time standpoint.
I think too. Sorry, were you gonna say something, Eve?
No, I just said agreed. That's a good point. Like, saving that copy and paste feature has definitely saved my life quite a few times. Go ahead.
I think we've been talking about value here, and that's obviously a central tenet to any of these discussions. From a consumer perspective, I think that if someone encounters something that we put together for them and it's in kind of a nice, neat, and snazzy package like you might get with TrueCoach or another app, I think it probably taps into some psychological aspect where someone might say, "Oh, that's kind of cool," and be a little bit more invested in doing what they want to do or need to do, upholding their part of the bargain. Not to say you couldn't do that with Google Sheets or spreadsheets. For me, I'm not skilled in that. And I do like the fact that using TrueCoach allows me to present a nicer looking package, still give them the same information that I would otherwise, but hopefully, hits them with that wow factor initially, which then gets them to follow through a little bit more upfront. And then that hopefully leads to some of those results that they want to see, which ultimately probably keeps them on board longer term.
I agree with everyone. I don't have much to add there. With the strength and conditioning background, I lived my life in an Excel spreadsheet for a long time, and I'm comfortable with that. And every now and then I have athletes who only want that. Like they don't like things like Coach. They are so used to an Excel. I say, fine, then that's what we do. But it's like what Jared said, everybody says it's all in one place. It's nice. I mean, the feature of like the video feature, you can just boom, webcam and shoot a quick little like coaching note in video and paste it right there on the workout. So the athlete gets to see your written feedback, a video of you talking about your cueing and coaching and recommendations on the particular. There's just a lot of functions I use TrueCoach, and we do in TrueCoach specifically, that are just really, really nice for both sides, and not just from an aesthetics, but just a functionality piece. Now, like with Excel, obviously you can be more flexible. If you have Excel skills, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Whereas in something like TrueCoach, you're limited to the functionality of the platform. So there is that. But a lot of us aren't Excel whizzes anyway. And then you got to go into your email. And if you wanted to do something in video, you've got to record it through whatever. And then it's just a whole big thing. So that's probably why people are going towards that. If you have no budget and you're like, I need zero overhead, Sheets and email it is. And then, like John said, as you scale up, you're going to want something that can scale with you. And that's kind of my thoughts on that.
No, for sure. I mean, TrueCoach is the best thing for one-on-one. There are other platforms if you want to check them out, like Train Heroic and Team Builder, but they're more typically for team-based, group-based stuff. But those are just other platforms if you want to check them out too.
Abby has an interesting, and do you identify as an extrovert or an introvert, or closer to one end of the scale than the other? Curious. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely an introvert. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've got 4 introverts on the panel. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So Abby is going to be our 5th, and she asks, "Hi, I'm an introvert. I'm interested in how personality impacts on one's ability to maximize success with online coaching. The world of dominating one's life, social media is anathema to me. Is it necessary to share the personal side, or can it be strictly professional?"
This is awesome.
What are your like as an introvert, or you kind of have to I got somebody coming in, I'm going to have a face-to-face encounter. Like I got to get up for this, and I got to like be in my mode. And because I'm saying this from like a personal experience, this is how I feel every single appointment. Do you feel any the online? Is the interaction different? Are you losing anything from a personal standpoint?
Yeah. So I think everybody's going to have strategies in order to combat some of that. So for me personally, like even with Made to Move, I just pretended that I was doing one-on-one interactions with my patient. And that's how that content would typically go. Right. And so I think you need to start with something that is easily attainable and that you can do consistently. So most people, again, want to start with what they see other people doing. And they're like, well, I'm going to do all these stories and I'm going to go live and I'm going to build this content and blah, 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 blah. And like, what I tell most people to do is like, hey, can you go put out 2 to 3 pieces of content, create YouTube videos for your patients and then post that on social media. There's your step one. And then you can kind of slowly build up to something that's a little more skilled, a little bit harder to do, and make it more long-term rather than something that, all at once. Does that kind of answer the question? Did I go off?
No, I think
it does.
Yeah, I think it's a good starting point. The one thing I want to also kind of mention here when we start talking about online, and I mentioned it in the previous episode here, you remove geographic limitations. When you have a one-on-one or a brick and mortar business and you get referrals from physicians, you're going to get a plethora of people that are drawn to your business. You can talk about CrossFit athletes or a particular type of athlete that may be drawn to you, but online, you have a little bit more control of who is drawn towards you. So if you're an introvert, I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of my athletes online are introverts too. They're struggling with the whole pandemic thing right now. And I've drawn them just because of the way that I present myself online. So if you're not a Instagram powerlifter who's, throwing clout everywhere with your lifts and stuff, you're like, those coaches draw those kinds of athletes. Those kind of clinicians draw those kinds of patients. You will draw people with your online presence, with how you put yourself out there. You will draw people that are similar to that. So I think if that's complete anathema to you, that's probably a good thing, because you're probably going to work with people that have a more similar personality because they're drawn to you in that way. My only suggestion when it comes to that is, when you decide to do this, really drill down on the niche that you want, because those are the people that you'll get. If you don't want super flamboyant people, then don't create super flamboyant content. Be you. Put out what you want to put out, and the people that are going to respect your introvertedness and professionalism will pay for your services.
Yeah, I guess just be yourself, Abby. John, on the podcast, John Kiley said, he can only be himself, and if he tries to be somebody else, then he's going to be inconsistent, because there's going to be days where he can't be that fake person. So be yourself. And as John said, you'll attract whoever appreciates you for you.
But
yeah.
I think we almost got to iterate that again, because it's definitely something that people struggle with. Like, just be authentic, and the people who speak to you, just like John said, I mean, it's such a good point, will come to you, right? Like, I'm not going after at Made to Move people who think, so should I something to be nice, like energy healing. Those kind of people are not coming into my clinic, right? And that's okay. That's what I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to very specific people. So just kind of being authentic and going forward with that. If that's more professional stuff, and then you don't feel like doing the personal side, I think that's fine. Like, yeah, go for it. Just gotta do it, man.
Alex has a kind of a brass tacks question. How often and how long are your follow-up check-ins for the programming clients who are on a subscription type service? Are they scheduled calls? Is a follow-up an actual in-person or, live interaction, or is it more of a video recording that sent to your clients? Or I'll stop there.
Yeah, we do weekly email check-ins and then a monthly Zoom call, right? So I already was trying to separate the brick and mortar, because we have somebody, basically he's in person and he does online stuff. So I didn't want those to cross-pollinate. So yeah, weekly check-ins, monthly Zoom call or phone call is what our cadence typically is. And if somebody needs to touch base more than that, like, hey, I've got an injury, we got to modify things, we would jump on the phone and call them more often if needed.
Follow-ups on that is a weekly check-in. What is that exactly? Is that a live, like short live thing? Or is that more, go ahead.
An email. Yeah, just an email that goes out, right? Like, hey, how's your training going? Here's maybe a tip of the week or something, an article I want you to go read. And if they kind of email back, there might be more interaction there.
And if it is somebody who's injured that requires a little bit more TLC, is that an upcharge?
It is not. Unless they have to come in for an appointment, right? Then we would obviously charge them. We charge them a discounted rate because they're already kind of in our community. But no, it's not an upcharge.
Okay, those are things that I've been thinking about too. Is there are inherently people who need a little bit more attention, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, but that balances, right? You got those people who, no matter what, right? They take so much of your time. There's some people a little more hands off. So I think there be a balance there long term.
David asks, I'm going to David and then Jeremy. David asks, other than directly contacting of gym owners, clinicians, and gym communities, et cetera, which we've talked about, have you thought of any strategies to separate yourselves from the quote, here's today's home workout suddenly being plastered all over social media from thousands of accounts per day? Seems hard to compete with thousands of free workouts being shared with massive followings. So how do you sift through that and try to get to your audience?
I would say, if this is going to assume that you already have an audience and you've already like established a group of people, those people want to hear from you. They already trust you, they know you, they like you. So if you don't put out content like that to them, you're almost letting them down. At least that's what that's how I feel, right? They want to hear from us. They want to know like what we're doing. And so we're kind of putting out that content. It just goes, there's probably two sides of that story too. Like, yeah, maybe you can create some sort of additional value or need to twist things. But initially it's like, I'm going to give the content that's needed to my audience right now. And if it just happens to be the same thing everyone's doing, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to let them down.
One thing that I found kind of shocking when I got into this, it's a bit of a mindset shift too. Do you really think you're competing with those people? Because just like he said, you need to focus on your 1%, your diehards, the people that, look to you and follow you. And those are the ones you want to really service. And they might be following the people that you think you're competing with. So you put your stuff out, you take care of your 1%ers, your diehards, and they're going to take care of you. And granted, if somebody's got 3.2 million followers, that 1% is a lot more than your 1%, but you've got to grow it somehow. And by kind of servicing those 1%ers, you're not necessarily competing with those people for the same thought space, if that makes any sense. You've got to service your 1%ers, so you got to put it out anyway. I got that from Monster Loyalty, by the way. It's a Lady Gaga book. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's so important because, Dave, I'm going to assume, like, we're all kind of assuming that you've had a patient athlete in your recent past as a paying client. Yeah. And if you've really just like a status, peered at a finger and literally starting from a clean slate, no one on human earth knows my name, then it's tough. You got to kind of start from ground zero. But I'm assuming that you've had people who trust you in the past. So it doesn't have to be an Instagram post to the ether that just gets buried by the people with 3.2 million followers. It could be an email to your people. It could be a Facebook Live that's only for the people that you've ever seen. A Zoom meeting for all of your past clients of the past year or whatever. So like what John, it's just kind of reiterating what even John is saying is like, cater to your people. They will help spread the word about you. You can still be posting, on Instagram too, because if you make content for your people, it's easy to just, copy and paste it over to Instagram. So you kind of tick that box off too. And maybe you get one or two new people, but yeah, I think these points are really, really valid that, focus on yours.
To piggyback off that a little bit, like when sometimes people start their cash practice and I tell them to start posting content, like, hey, create some YouTube videos, send them to your patients, but also post them on content, post them on Instagram. They'll be like, well, there's already so many exercise videos out there. Like, why would I do that? And agreed, right? But at the same time, that's just the people that you're following. You have no idea who your patients are following and how many freaking people are there in the United States alone. You think every single one of them is following one of your PT accounts with a bunch of exercise videos? Like, no, like put out the content like that you want to put out that means something to you and you'll be fine.
My first athlete was my little brother. I've coached him for over 10 years at this point, continuously. I got clients from my mom and dad. Like if you're starting from a clean slate, you still have probably some built-in 1%ers you don't even know about that will talk you up. So you got to start. Yeah. You got to start. Don't wait. Start now.
just those barriers, right? Everybody wants to create barriers to creating action. It's just like, just start it. You'll figure it out. Trust me. Like my first exercise videos, I hadn't shaved in like 4 months, and it was a terrible camera, and like I was nervous. I like messed up all my words, and people still watch it, and it got better over time. Like the more I did it.
People are thanking us in the chat, hopping off here, but Yves, if you still got a few minutes,
Yeah.
a couple. Okay, we got a couple good questions still. Jeremy asks, potentially another noob question: does anyone find the limited trackability in TrueCoach of different metrics a downside and end up via Excel and TrueCoach to track and crunch numbers? And this may be something that we can talk about off air, Jeremy, because if people don't use TrueCoach, they don't know what the hell we're talking about. But I'll just give my 2 cents. In the very, very beginning, I did, until I figured out the intricacies of how the metrics in TrueCoach worked, like just the functionality and the literal logistics of kind of organizing things. And over the past few years, I've also trimmed down the amount of metrics that I track, because a lot of them have become relatively meaningless. And that's another conversation. But if it's truly not causing you to create coaching decisions going forward, you might want to question tracking the metric. Short answer is I've found that as I've simplified the numbers that I care about, TrueCoach does the job, and I'm happy to talk off air about how exactly like I set that up. You guys have any thoughts about tracking metrics on people in TrueCoach versus another?
No, you pretty much said everything I was going to say.
Ditto.
One idea that I got from John was that in the metrics tab of TrueCoach, you can set up those metrics that you care about, and then also crowdsource. I was for a while going through and adding in these data points from my clients to track estimated 1RMs for particular lifts. And John brought up the idea that I could ask them to do that. It's pretty simple. And then we can still track those things, like you said, if they matter, if I really care about them. Fact of the matter is, a lot of my clients haven't done it, and it's been fine. It's not been that big of a deal, but that's just another way you could go about it.
Yeah, if you're going to do workload ratios, Jeremy, you have to have % compliance, because I can put in TrueCoach, session RPE, and all these things, and like Jared said, make it to where the person actually, it's like part of their workout. They have to input their metric themselves, and it goes to the metric sections automatically. But let's say they forget and they miss a day. Well, now my workloads are all jacked up because they forgot 3 days out of the week. So it doesn't, the metric lose anyway. And you've got to really kind of figure out what matters in that regard. Adam asked a good question, Eve. I'm interested, as we talked about all this, like kind of like still maintaining existential value, but monetarily maybe bringing the barrier down a little bit. Adam asks, if you're starting out and trying to build a base, you shouldn't be too concerned about giving too much content away for no cost? Question mark. Or being afraid of giving everything away for free?
Oh man, I've been doing that for 4 years, and it has paid in spades beyond. I give everything away for free. Like people, again, it's deciding. It's not the content that people want. People want the accountability. They want the account, they want the community. They want to talk to you specifically, right? Like anybody could go and put together a program of how to work out with progressions and all that stuff. You could go put that together, but they want an expert to kind of do that for them, right? And so give everything away for free. I mean, let's not take that too literal, right? But like, at the same time, right? Give it all away for free. And then those people will now know, like, and trust you. And then we actually have a problem, or they're like, crap, I don't want to put this together. I want to reach my goals. Now they're going to reach out to you. And now you built that trust. And now they're going to stick around for a very
Say that E word again. Expert. How is anybody supposed to know you're an expert if they've never seen you or hear anything that comes out of your face? Like that's part of it. You do have to give some stuff away here. And I know it's tough, but when you're just making, minute and a half long videos with little factoids that you have found valuable that you can spread out, that's just going to increase your value. So when you do come with that value proposition and you say, hey, look, this is how much it costs for my services, there's no no barrier there. They're like, I understand and value your expertise because you've given me so many things for free, and we're ready to go. If you haven't established your expertise there, then it's much more difficult to actually have them understand that value. So yeah, I think you should really give some stuff away for free. You're not trying to give away like, an entire year's worth of coaching, but some content and knowledge is a great way to start.
And people aren't going to piece that stuff because they don't know. Like, imagine, Adam, like, you might look at, let's say, your Instagram page, and you've got just all of your ads basically out for free. And you're like, this is it. Like, people, why would they pay me? They can just go to my Instagram and watch all my videos. But that's not how that works. If you go think about a topic that you don't know anything about, and I'll ask myself, what the hell, engineering of something. And I will go to my favorite engineering page, and this person has all types of content. Like, and in his mind, he's like, well, I'm giving all my ideas out for free, but I'm looking at this and like, whoa, these are awesome ideas, but I don't put them together because that's not my realm. If I really wanted to really dig in and have his expertise, I would contact him so that he could help me wrap my brain around these ideas over time. So that's what you're doing for these people, is you're showing them what you can do and how you can help. But don't worry about them thinking, oh, now I have it, because that's not the case at all. And like John said, you're going to help them piece it together.
That's a concept from the book Being Wrong, where you're an expert in your field, you're very good at it, but outside of that, you know almost nothing. So anytime somebody asks you a question like, well, I have back pain, how do I stop having back pain? And you just get a blanket question. Think of all the things that run through your head as soon as that question comes through. There's like 100 little data points that just run through your brain. They don't know any of them. Same thing like Quinn's talking about. If I open the hood of my truck, I'm just going to look at it like, oh, look at this. This is cool.
I know that's an engine. that's the battery.
This uses gasoline to push me forward. That's great. It's not there. So they're not, like Quinn's talking about, they're not going to put all those data points together, and they're not going to be able to even understand how some of those data points that you put out as content relate to each other. That's kind of, it's those gaps. And honestly, because you're highly trained, that's the value, is that you can put all those things together and you can string all those data points together to something that's actually usable. And that's the beauty of the whole thing.
Okay. Jennifer, I work at a massage clinic in the UK, and I don't necessarily have regular clients. However, I do have a list of clients that I can message. Would it be a good idea to just see how they are and offer a home workout? And if they have further questions, to maybe do a video consult? I understand this is a stressful time for people, so I'm aware that I don't want to pester people. If people don't want to come back to you, do you still try and get a narrative going, or leave it?
I hear this all the time, the word kind of pester, right? And like, am I bothering people? And again, it comes back to the people want to hear from you. They want to feel supported. You're going to pester them if you're like, hey, buy from me right now. I'm doing video consults. It costs $200. Let's go do it. That's not pestering. Checking in and asking how they're doing. Hey, this is a stressful time. How can I help you? That's not pestering people, right? I mean, I get it all the time. It's like, well, they didn't message me back, instantly. They didn't text me right back. It's like, well, I will follow up somebody 3 to 4 times before I get a message back. And they're typically thankful that I did that because they're busy, they've got a lot going on, or they forget. It's the people that are persistent. And again, shows them that you care enough to be persistent. It's not the other way around. If a friend follows up with you multiple times, like, hey, let's meet up, like, sometimes, yes, if you don't like that friend, you ignore them. But if you like them, you're going to respond back. Thank you, follow up with me. Yeah, let's go grab a beer. Like, you've got to follow up. You're not pestering them. You're just building trust, and you're showing them that you care.
Love it. Inba, and I apologize if I'm butchering your name, but you asked a really good question. What do you think about cooperation between neurologists and PT in the field of inpatient and outpatient rehab? Is it useful to create short online courses of neurology for PT? And I ask this knowing that like none of us work in inpatient or neurology, but it's me, it would still follow the same theme, perhaps. What do you think, Yves?
Yeah, so it looks like you want to create an online course to help neurologists understand what PTs are doing, or like the value that PT can provide. Is that what he's thinking about? Is that how you interpret that?
Maybe. Or maybe educational videos for physical on neurology, but it's like a collaboration between a physical therapist and a neurologist.
Gotcha. I mean, yeah, well, regardless, right? Like you've got something that you have a unique expert skill set and you want to provide value to whether it's neurologists or patients in general. So I think it's a great idea. There's so many ways for us as physical therapists, as practitioners, as coaches to provide value, right? The challenge is not typically the content. The challenge is building the audience and effectively selling it, right? So yes, I think it's a good idea either way.
Yeah, I asked that knowing that we don't have anything about the nuts and bolts of what that would look like, but if you've talked about this whole time is creating something that's valuable for people, and that for your audience, that sounds valuable to me. If I was a PT in neurology, I would be looking for continuing ed.
Right. Just like y'all's free pain science course. That was awesome, by the way.
Thanks, man.
2,300 people so far have enrolled.
That's a good number. That's a good metric. That's a metric you're tracking.
Jeremy, this is kind of a nuts and bolts question for you, Yves, specifically, because you had a PTA on your staff. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. How has that changed, that transition been from made to move, largely providing online services now for the PTA? Is there any specific Practice Act considerations for PTAs or athletic trainers that should be considered?
Yeah, I mean, they can't do the initial evaluation from a physical therapy standpoint. That's the only piece that we're kind of worried about. I mean, it's anytime you're managing a team, right, of people, which you get into some of the weeds here, but like understanding where their skill set is and how to best leverage that skill set. So Dane is very, very good with people on the phone. So he's the one reaching out to patients individually, texting them, and then trying to get them on a free consultation with Nate, who's our lead physical therapist, or with Matt, or with myself, right? So that's how we're leveraging him right now.
Got it. So I actually saw a video yesterday on Facebook. It was like a 5-minute video of Simon Sinek talking to his team. And he said, we've just got to figure out a way to create new jobs. And what he meant was not that his team was going to have to leave the company, but they were going to have to adapt their responsibilities within their current company. And like if you were an in-person pizza maker, well, you're now a delivery. And it's like, but you still work for the same company. So it's like what you just said, you shifted the responsibility and you said, what is your strength? Because there's some constraints here with our current model, but how can we still leverage your skills?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I'm kind of obsessed. I really like the analogy of getting the right people in the right seat on the bus, right? So now we're not driving a bus anymore. Maybe we're driving a Jeep Wrangler, and I'm just trying to get him on the right seat for this new terrain. We're going to keep going with that new terrain. I want to get him in the right seat on this new car, right? And so that's us kind of coming together and be like, what's your skill set? Well, I'm a really good clinician. Cool. We're going to make sure you do the free consults. Dane, I'm really good at being on the phone, reaching out to people. Okay, you're going to do that. Hey, Yves, you're going to do more of the online digital funnel. You're going to build the landing pages. Okay, cool. And then we kind of all get together. Bam, get after it.
It's a soft top or hard top Wrangler that we're riding.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, it's beautiful here, so I'm thinking it's a convertible, man. There's nothing.
Nice.
Well, this has been really, really awesome. And I think we dug through all the questions, but Yves, thanks so much for this. Yeah, man. Really, really helpful for people. And if you scroll through the chat, I think people really, really got a lot out of this. Where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about what you're doing with Made to Move, with physical therapy biz, all that stuff?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is pretty easy. It's @PTBiz. I post daily videos there, kind of like my kind of coaching style, and then @Made to Move PT is our Instagram handle as well. And then the website for kind of the business coaching stuff is physicaltherapybiz.com. And you can kind of check out what kind of services we offer. But I'm very responsive. Anytime you have a question, please just, sneak in the DMs, as the kids say nowadays, and I will respond to you as soon as possible. So thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah. And we can, again, John, Jared, and I, Yves has been a part of the Clinical Athlete. I mean, you're an OG. You've been a part of this thing for years, almost since the very, very beginning. And the help, what you've done in the forum, reaching out to people who have asked these similar questions over the years, like long before this, we appreciate it so much. So it was a no-brainer to have you come on and share your expertise. And I learned a ton. Hopefully it's exciting for people. Like there are answers, and it's a pivot. You got to shift a little bit, but you can use this as a positive. And would really encourage you guys to watch the recording again, because there's going to be, watch it again and again. There's going to be things that you pick up on that you didn't hear the first, second, third time. So thanks so much, Yves, John, Jared, so much for joining us. Thanks everybody for the awesome discussion.
Thank you guys. Thanks, Yves, again.
Yeah, you guys have a good rest of your day.
See ya.
Bye.